The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the RavenDB webinar. And today we have a special session. We have a mystery feature. This is one of 4 or 5 big ticket features that are going to go into RavenDB 3.0. And we're going to have Judah show us this feature. So Judah, the floor is yours. Let's take this.
Very good. Well, thank you all for coming. As Oren just said, this is one of the big ticket items that we've been working on for Raven 3. And we're pretty excited to show you guys this stuff. It's something I've been working on for the last couple of months, and we're pretty stoked to show it to you. This particular feature is something that has been requested by you guys in the Raven community for quite some time now. Whenever it comes up in, it often comes up in the Raven Google group as well as Oren's blog. We see it a lot too, and it's also just a feedback item. We hear a lot from the external community too, so we're pretty stoked to show this to you. Last night I was looking at the Raven Google group, and I came across this. This was posted just a few hours ago, late last night. And Justin Akbar here, he says, any bets on what this mystery feature can be? I was hoping for the HTML5 Studio, but there wouldn't be a webinar for that, he says. Well, I'm happy to say there actually is a webinar for that. In fact, it is the one that you are watching. Indeed, what we have done is we have written a new Raven Studio from the ground up using modern web technologies, HTML5, CSS3, and JavaScript. So we're pretty stoked about this. We think this is a big step forward for Raven. We really want our tooling to shine. The database itself rocks, and we want the tooling to reflect that. So what we're going to do today is just give you a tour of the studio and some of the new features, as well as just kind of the look and feel changes. And we'll go from there. So I hope you guys are excited to see this, and hope you like it. All right, so why don't we hop over to Visual Studio. Okay, so I've got a Raven server running, and what I'm going to do first is just, we're going to start Studio fresh, the new HTML5 Studio. Okay. All right, so the first thing I would like to point out is you'll notice how quickly the new studio starts. In the old Silverlight Studio, it turns out there was a lot of work that had to be done just upon starting the tool. For example, you had to, if this was your first time hitting the studio, maybe you had to pull down that Silverlight zap file, a few megs worth, I suppose. You had to load up a new CLR, you had to do all of this initialization work, start executing managed code, and so forth. And that's a lot of overhead. And the end result being the old studio could take anywhere from like 5 to 10 seconds to start up just for a cold start. And warm starts were slower too, because the browser had to launch a host process for Silverlight and all the overhead associated with managed code. So with this new studio, Raven Studio 3, what we've done is, as I said, because we're just plain HTML5 and JavaScript, there's no managed code being executed here, and so our startup time is actually really fast. Cold startup times I've found to be about 70 to 80% faster, and we think that's important. We're all about performance in the database itself, but we likewise want that for the tool. We want our tool to start up quickly. So cold starts are much faster, several orders of magnitude faster. Warm starts, where your browser has already cached the studio, or all the assets for the studio. Warm starts are also faster, again, just because the browser doesn't have to start up a plugin host process. You'll see here the warm start is quite quick, about a second, maybe less. Another kind of invisible feature before I just give you a tour of the studio is memory usage. We think this is important. I think developer tools in the past, well, developer tools today have really lost, I think, efficiency. Visual Studio and ReSharper, they tend to be real hogs, eating several hundred megabytes to a gigabyte plus. And we want the new Raven Studio to be fast and efficient with memory and not eat all of your machine's resources. And so I'm proud to say, let me see if I can bring this up here. The resolution has changed, so maybe not, but let's see. Yeah, I can't quite see it. It's off screen. Well, with the old Studio, and actually we can do this quick. You can see the old startup time was quite a bit slower. But with the old Studio 2, just going to the databases pages would end up eating something like 140 megabytes of memory. And that's kind of painful just to load the databases page alone. I know some of you, just reading the Raven Google group, some of you guys in the Raven community will actually open up multiple tabs of the Studio. And I do that too in my workflows. Maybe I'll be editing a document and looking at a collection in another tab and so forth. And when you do that with the old Studio, you're going to be ending up eating something like several hundred megabytes. We're looking at a bunch for each tab that's opened. And I'm pleased to say that with the new HTML5 Studio, we're looking at about 20 megabytes of memory to hit the databases tab, and even going into documents, you're going to be seeing something like 30 or 40 megabytes of memory, as opposed to 100 plus. So we're pretty proud of that. Again, I think efficiency and performance is something that we really want to drive in the new Studio, and just make the tool get out of your way, so to speak, and performance is a big part of that. So we're pretty proud of that. Okay, so let me, now that I've kind of shown you some invisible features, let me show you what the new Studio looks like. You kind of see the databases page here. We've taken a little different approach than the old Studio. In the old Studio, you would double-click to go to a database. Here we're trying to be a little more visible, so we just use hyperlinks, which something that's familiar on the web, to go right to the documents for that database. And likewise, as we click around and select, you can see this is changing. We've got the stats in the bottom for that database showing as we click on it. So let's go ahead and go to one of these guys. Let's go to, sure. This is some data that I imported from one of my live websites. And you can see here it looks maybe a little different. The first thing I'd like to draw your attention to is the grid behavior looks a little different. You'll see that just clicking on these doesn't select them. Instead, you actually select using checkboxes on the left. This is something familiar on the web. Gmail uses something similar. And the reason we did that is because it allows us to do some fun things with the row itself. In the old Studio, had we gone to one of these guys, I can bring that up. Maybe I have some issue there. The rows were kind of opaque. There wasn't any. We couldn't really do much with the rows themselves. I can't really select text here. I would have to start editing the document if I wanted to get data out. But here, with this new selection mechanism, we can kind of just copy stuff there, or I can go and edit the document just by clicking on the hyperlink here. And also for databases that have IDs, for your documents that have referenced IDs. Maybe you have a column here that is an ID. We can just click that and go right to that document, which is nice. Let me show that to you quickly. So how about this guy? And yeah, okay, so here we've got some product documents, and you can see we also have some categories referenced and some suppliers referenced. We can, using this new kind of grid, we can just hop right to that. So I can go right to the categories, or shoot over to suppliers and so forth. Okay, let's go back. One other thing I'd like to point out too is one thing we wanted to do was really preserve your existing workflow. We didn't want to move around a bunch of stuff just for the sake of change. We're changing the underlying technology of the new studio, but it doesn't mean we need to disrupt your workflow and kind of hit that that problem. Scott Hanselman refers to it as "who moved my cheese." We didn't want to do that in our case. We want to just preserve your existing workflow, and to that end, we've preserved a lot of the UI. As you can see, this should be familiar to you if you've used the old Raven Studio. As well as we've really made Raven Studio 3 be an application rather than a set of different pages. So it's truly a web application and not a website. You'll see as we click around on these guys, we're not doing some big post back to reload the whole site. Instead, we're kind of staying within the application context, and we really believe that's important. Okay, so let me show you some additional things. Let's go back to documents here. As you can see, we've got the collection colors, and these follow the documents around. So, as I scroll down, we should be able to see some different ones here, employees and so forth. And that color sticks with. This is just something that we've taken from Raven Studio 2.5 up. One other bit about performance, if I didn't mention this already, is the grid itself we find to be just much faster scrolling. You can see even just the responsiveness as I'm moving around, as opposed to like here, it's maybe not quite as responsive, but here it's nice and fast. And again, just driving performance in the new Raven Studio 3, we consider really important. Okay, so let's see here. Oh yes, also one other bit for performance is just switching between these collections. You can see it kind of pauses in the old studio, in the old Raven Studio. But here for us, it's actually quite instant. Even for larger sets, it's pretty quick, under a second. So performance, again, just in the grid itself. A couple things. Let's have a look at a few things we can do with this grid.
Judah,
Yes.
we have a couple of questions that I think would be this would be a good time to talk about this now.
Sure, sure.
So we have one from Khalid Abu Hakme. I think I murdered the name, but okay. Are you considering adding a pager element to the grid, like an X bottom or a numeric page?
Paging to the grid itself. So what we did consider that. What we ended up doing instead was just doing kind of infinite scrolling. I'm certainly not opposed, as you can see here, as I reach the bottom, we keep going. I'm not opposed to doing paging where we can just click, skip to end. In fact, in the old studio, you can kind of do that. You can hit like Control-N to scroll to the end. So we'll do something similar. I'm certainly open to having paging in the grid itself.
Okay, we have Daniel Marbach, who is asking, sorry, missed the first 10 minutes. Is this HTML5 and responsive? Yes and yes.
Correct, yes. I mentioned this to Oren before we started, but it is responsive as well. We're using Bootstrap 3 for the UI, and Bootstrap 3 is mobile first, so we have responsive design.
Okay, so implication of that is that we're probably going to have first-line support for managing RavenDB from a mobile phone or something like that. Honestly,
Correct.
I don't know why you would want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, yeah, let's edit JSON on the fly using a mobile keyboard, but you could do that. Mike Scott is saying, if you're comparing performance, could you switch the Silverlight to the same database, please?
Sure, of course.
Mike, there is a problem with that. What you're seeing is over a relatively slow rendering using the webinar, so you wouldn't actually be able to see the real performance. Judah probably is not aware of that because he's actually seeing the real life data.
Right,
But
yep.
there is some lag that we're probably experiencing. So we have Matt Johnson. Will there be support for Studio plugins? For example, to pair UI with a custom server bundle? The answer to that is probably. We actually had something like that in the very first RavenDB Silverlight Studio. The problem was that no one actually ever used that. I think, Judah, correct me if I'm wrong, but this would be relatively easy to do by just having a responder that would inject some that will have some attachments on the database that we will check. If you have attachments starting with a specific name, then we will import them in, and that would be a way for us to allow you to extend the studio as well.
Yeah, I agree. We could implement some server-side stuff and then just consume that from the studio end.
Okay, Daniel Marbach is asking, I see a benefit when you compose a DB with your iPad when you're in the industrial place and need to see stuff, okay? And do you provide CSS and style guidance for plugins? When we will have them, yes, probably. Pablo Vivera is asking, where are the system docs?
Yes.
Yeah.
He caught a bug. We
Okay.
need to see the system docs, and they're not showing right now. It's something on my list, though.
Okay. Mircea Chiri, I don't know if that's the right way to say that, but when the column data for row is too big and gets an ellipsis in the end, is there going to be a way to quickly copy that data? For example, the column in the animal database for animals, or right now we see the lines. The lines columns has an ellipsis in the end.
Oh, sure. Will you be able to see the whole thing? Yeah, actually, that's one thing I've got on my list. Is what I'd like to do is kind of just do a little popover as you hover over a particular column that you can see the full data and even copy it out of that.
Yeah. We get another question from Khalid about, do you see users able to write visualizer for specific document types? It would be cool to take a set of location documents and plot them into a map. The answer is that we have absolutely no idea how the plugins or extension would look like. I have to warn you that plugins in general are not something that we're even currently really putting much attention to. We want to have full support for all of the features in the studio, and then we're going to look into all of that. Okay, we have one from Raja Mani. There are some questions on using Silverlight for Studio. Finally, it's a good move, but wouldn't it make sense to invest time on adding real features to RavenDB rather than working on the UI? Raja, currently there are 4 or 5 big things planned for RavenDB 3.0. Judah is currently dedicated full-time to just doing that, just working on the studio. The plan is in the next 3 to 5 weeks, we'll finish another big change that's coming in 3.0, which means that we have 2 guys, Daniel and Judah, working just on this. It doesn't mean that 3.0 is going to be RavenDB 2.5 with HTML5. We're going to have some really other cool stuff as well. Phil Jones is asking, do you have IntelliSense support in query indexes? Right now, indexes are not implemented. This is the next big task for HTML5. And then we have another few questions that I think, Judy, you should take. Why Knockout and not Angular? And this is by Phil Jones and Matt Johnson. Can you talk briefly about the implementation? I saw Knockout. Are you using RandallJS or something else? Do we still have real-time update notification? Perhaps Signal based now.
Yes. So we did consider Angular. Angular is one of the other popular web application frameworks, I would say. The reason we ended up using Knockout was we went towards something called RandallJS. I think that person asked about Durandal. Durandal is a really nice web application framework for building single-page apps, meaning a single page that really acts as a whole cohesive application. And so we went to use Durandal, and Durandal itself in turn uses Knockout.js for data binding and Bootstrap 3 for UI. And so that's what we ended up using. We're pretty happy with it so far. Certainly, Angular is a popular one, but we're pretty happy with Knockout and RandallJS.
Okay. Okay. So, guys, if you have any more questions, that would be a good time for that. Matt Johnson says +1, very nice. And Judah, please continue.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I do appreciate the feedback too, guys. And if after this presentation, hearing feedback in the Raven Google group would be great too. So we're definitely listening to that, and yeah, I'm really excited to hear what you guys have to say. Okay, so so I've kind of just shown a bit of the grid and some of the collection stuff. I've shown some performance. Let me just show you a few more features, and we'll kind of close out. So one of the other things from the old Silverlight Studio was when you went to copy some documents, what you would see previously was Silverlight itself would kind of bring up this scary security prompt saying, do you want to allow Silverlight to access your clipboard? And I feel like stuff like that kind of gets in the way of our workflow. You could set it to remember and all that, but nonetheless, it's not very friendly and kind of disrupting the workflow. So what we did for the new studio is when you go to copy, you can just right away you can hit Control-C, Enter, and that will send it to the clipboard. As we can see here, it's all the stuff we just copied. And likewise, we can switch over to just copying the IDs. There they are. Kind of a small thing, but I think an improvement. Again, we want to just eliminate some of the hiccups in the workflow, and things like that help toward it. Okay, let's see what we've got. So some of the stuff, standard stuff you'd expect, we can delete. It'll tell us the document we're deleting. And likewise, keyboard shortcuts work, so delete from the keyboard works. We can also delete collections. So in this case, if I wanted to delete all the orders, it tells me what I'm about to delete. Try it on maybe a smaller one. We're about to delete 3 docs. Deleting, there it is. So that's kind of documents. Again, we wanted to preserve just a lot of what you're familiar with in Raven Studio 2.5, just moving the underlying technology to HTML5. Okay, let me show you Edit Document. So in the old Studio, you did this by either right-clicking or double-clicking a row. In this case, you can just click a hyperlink. We go right to that document. Driving home performance, again, we can page through. You see we're in companies, so there's 89 companies. I can page through those, and it's nice and fast. You can hop to the first, go to the last, go back to one, and so forth. and all the standard stuff you'd expect. So I can make some change here, click Save. It's integrated with notifications. We can refresh the document, as you can see. Delete, as you would expect as well. One other thing I'd like to do to show off today is with the old Silverlight Studio, we kind of broke the keyboard. You'll find, like, once Silverlight launches, and this isn't really just the Studio, this is Silverlight in general, keyboard shortcuts in your daily workflow, like maybe Control-T to open a new tab. Well, I'm hitting Control-T right now, and nothing's happening because Silverlight's actually eating the keyboard shortcuts, even though Silverlight itself is not doing anything with it. So one thing we wanted to do, now that we're kind of outside of the plugin ghetto and just on the straight HTML5 web, is let's integrate some keyboard shortcuts. I think it's important for developers like you guys, as well as DevOps people, for productivity. Just keeping your hands on the keyboard, I think is very important. So we've done that throughout the Studio. You can get around the Studio just using the keyboard. You can see here all of these have different keyboard shortcuts. So I can say Control-S to save it, or Control-R to refresh, and let's see here. Oh yes. So say I wanted to just get around in this page. We can do things like Alt-I will give me the IDs box. Focus that. And give it a new ID, and we'll save it as a new document. And Control-S, save. And if I wanted to go down to the content pane, Alt-C will bring me down there. Likewise, I can switch between metadata and the data just using the keyboard shortcuts. Again, it's maybe a small thing, but it's some nice polish, and again, just designed to make the Studio get out of your way and allow you to get work done. We've also done it elsewhere here too, so you can see it, new document, Control-N, we've got a new document. We'll save it as history feature 1, and we'll go down there and say HTML5 Studio, yes, and save it. Go back to Documents, and there is our mystery feature. So this has kind of been just a brief overview of where we're headed with the new Studio. Again, the big bit being we've moved out of plugins, off of Silverlight. And I think that's a good thing for Raven in the long run. We're trying to preserve your functionality that you're accustomed to, but even make some things a little better, with performance, with keyboard shortcuts, maybe some tweaks and features. We're aiming for feature parity with the previous Studio, but I think we're going to do some things better as well.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, let's answer a few more questions.
Sure.
Rajamani is asking, how is the refactoring of storage engines coming along? No comment. Mostly because it's getting there. I have some high hopes and a lot less hair. Daniel Marbach, can you talk about other trio features? Absolutely, in the next webinar. I'm sorry that I'm doing that, but we literally have right now, I have a team of 3 people who are working on storage. We have one guy who is working on even more indexing stuff. We have another guy that is working on another big feature that I don't want to talk, and I'm doing more stuff that should be really, really awesome to see, but I don't want to show them beforehand. We want to really show them at when we can actually show you something that you can sink your teeth into. Phil Jones, can you show the responsiveness by making the browser window smaller?
Sure. Yes. So as I mentioned, we're using Bootstrap, and in fact, the browser window is quite a bit smaller just using the different resolution for the presentation here. But you can see some of it. It's not exactly where we want it now. Like for example, as I scrunch these down, it's kind of collapsing the top bar. So there's some responsiveness built in, but it's maybe not where we want it to be yet. We haven't spent time on it because more important is we just want to get feature parity with the old Studio, and then we'll look at, hey, let's make this shine on tablets and mobile as well.
Okay, another question for Phil Jones. Haven't heard of Durandal. Does it have a good unit testing story? And before you answer, Jude, I just want to talk just a bit about Durandal.
Sure.
RandallJS has been created by Rob Eisenberg. I've been working with Rob for the past, I don't know, 5-6 years, something like that. He's actually, he and Christopher Benage were the people who actually wrote the UI for the profiler suite that we have. And he's also the one that wrote the first version of the RavenDB Studio, the Silverlight one. He's been doing a lot of single-page application, and he's a really, really good developer. And so that's the background for the personal background for what's going on. And Judah, just go ahead and talk about the actual technical stuff.
Sure. So yeah, like Oren said, Durandal is a nice single-page application framework written by our friend Rob Eisenberg, and he's done some really sharp stuff. Some of you might recognize, I think he did one of the MVVM frameworks in Silverlight WPF. So he's done a lot of great stuff, and Durandal's just another really great framework for doing single-page apps, which actually makes sense for the new Raven Studio. You talked about a unit testing story. I think that's outside of the realm of Durandal. I would say that it bodes well for unit tests, and what I mean by that is rather than just a mess of JavaScript, your application is kind of composed of view models, individual view models, and just to give you a little background here, you might think, well, this doesn't quite look like JavaScript. We're actually using TypeScript for the application code, which is an extension of JavaScript, superset of JavaScript rather. And but I guess what I'm saying to answer the question about unit test is because your application is composed of really components, true components. In this case, we've got multiple view models, and those are just composed together. Unit testing is attractive. I could go to this database and write unit tests for this without affecting the whole system. So Durandal makes it possible. I would say that unit tests themselves are outside the realm of Durandal.
Okay, next question. Khalid, an aesthetic question. Is this the final look of the studio? Will you try to match the original look of the studio, or are you going to upgrade the look for 3.0?
Sure.
We're going to do a different look. We're going to try to stay near, but honestly, and Judah, we had some discussion about that. This is not a Silverlight application. This is a HTML5 application, and it should look and behave like that application. Speaking about the actual design language, we have a guy, Daniel, that is very big on that, and he's actually been pushing a lot the idea that we need a new design language for the new studio, because that would also be a way for us to express what are the new stuff that are going to be there. Probably not explaining that too well, but yeah, go ahead.
I can add something too. I would say, as far as just kind of the colors and maybe the look and not so much the design language, but the look itself and the colors are not finalized. I've played around with some various Bootstrap themes. Because we're using Bootstrap, it's very easy to change the appearance. And I've played around with several. I wasn't particularly happy with them, but this I think is more of a something that we'll collaborate on perhaps with with people with a better design eye than myself for the look and feel.
Okay. Next question. Daniel Marbach, syntax highlighting for indexes, and the answer is yes, there will be. Same thing for Phil Jones. I missed the highlighting of the JSON document when you're editing it. Is it planned? Yes, there will be both syntax highlighting for indexes and for editing documents. There will also be, yeah, go ahead.
If I can interject one thing there. I was up real late last night, like I don't know, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. trying to finish on syntax highlighting for the JSON editor. We're using a real nice component for that. I couldn't finish it in time for the demo and still feel comfortable with it, but we're almost there. So that'll be something that the next time you see the HTML5 Studio will be in.
Kijana says +1 for the keyboard shortcuts, and I say +2. Yeah, we actually haven't discussed the keyboard shortcuts. Judah just added them, which is awesome.
Yes.
Okay, Dan Trota is asking, is this going to be put on Git? Yes, it's already on Git on Judah's fork.
That's right. Yep, if you go here, you can see there's an HTML5 fork, and if you're interested in just futzing around with the code, let's see here, where is it? Oh, right, HTML5, there it is. There's a nice kind of intro document, just this README MD that kind of says, okay, here's the code layout, kind of get you started if you're interested in playing with it, and certainly we'll be accepting pull requests as well.
So a few things. After the webinar, we're going to do a post on this. If you want to contribute, we would really love that. Just post that to the mailing list, and we can coordinate. If, as you can see, this would be really simple to contribute. Pick a page that hasn't been done yet and just implement that. We're really looking forward to having the community contribute, especially because the barrier for entry here has just become much lower. Matt Johnson, will the studio be localized into other languages? Currently, there are no plans of doing that. Phil Jones, how big is the Raven team now? I think we're 9, 10, something like that. Raja, I had to ask this question to any software vendor regarding release date. Our project is going live by the end of December. Right now we are on RavenDB 1.2 and in the process of moving to 2.5. Should I wait for 3.0 or go live with 2.5? Go live with 2.5. Mostly because currently we are planning on releasing RavenDB 3.0 at January or February 2014, and we routinely slip that schedule by 3 to 6 weeks. So, but ideally I would like to have a new release by January 4th, 2014. I'm not going to tie myself down to that. So right now we are aiming at January 1st. Likely we have something in January to February timeframe. Khalid has an implementation question. Which feature will be the most difficult to recreate in HTML5, and how do you feel, and do you feel limited in HTML5?
Sure, I can answer that. Some of the difficult ones may be when we're dealing with file streams, like perhaps having to do with the import-export. Yep. I haven't felt limited at all so far. I suspect there will be some things that we'll have to kind of work around in HTML5, and import-export might be a good example. That said, frankly, guys, the native web has really evolved in the last 5 years, such that the things you can do, even with file storage and opening files and binary data, you can even do now in HTML5. So It's evolved. I'm not too concerned about it personally. I think we'll be able to handle all the features from the 2.5 Studio some way or another. We may have to work around some, but I don't think it'll be anything terrible.
Okay. Ian Barry is asking, are you using Moderniser for HTML5 fallbacks to support users with non-HTML5 compliant browsers?
Yes, we are using Moderniser, if I recall. I haven't done much with it. I would say for the Studio, a minimum that I'm shooting for is probably IE9, unless Oren tells me
No.
we must support old stuff.
No, here's the deal, guys.
Yeah.
Even after the HTML5 Studio becomes the default studio, we are still going, you know what, here's, please go to localhost 8080/raven/index.html.
This is the URL?
Yes, no, index.html.
Oh, index.
Raven/index. Okay, yeah.
Very good. There we go.
Welcome to the first RavenDB HTML 3.0 studio. So this is actually still coming out with RavenDB, unless I remember to remove it. Yeah, unless I remember to remove it. But I think we still have users using this. So unless I remember removing it, it will probably still go out with RavenDB for the foreseeable future. So just to let
We've come a long way.
Yes. Oh yes. So just to give you some idea, we're going to plan for HTML5 browser. If we don't have that, then the fallback is not going to be let's spend another 3 weeks just trying to figure out how to make it work with i6. We're going to say run the Silverlight Studio, and that will be it. Any more questions? Yeah, Judah, you have something?
Oh, I just wanted to say that I think that's the right move going forward. I think there's only so long you can support the old browsers. Because we're using Bootstrap, we could support, I think, going back to like IE7, but I'm not sure that it's worth it.
No, I agree. I fully agree with it. Okay, guys. Last chance to ask questions, and we have one. Okay. Michael Davis, will RavenDB 3.0 require .NET 4.5? I'm using it as an embedded database. I'd like to know how this might affect WinXP support. Yes, RavenDB 3.0 is going to require .NET 4.5. It's been 2+ years, and I know that XP support is something that is problematic, but we really can't stay at 4.0 forever. We have had to already do some really major backbending work just to get it there, and we're not going to be able to do that for long. So 3.0 is going to be 4.5, and to the customer using XP, you're going to go and tell them that Microsoft no longer supports Windows XP, so neither should you. And yes, I know that this is a problematic statement to make. John Bennett, will the HTML5 Studio have feature to manage full Raven environment, multi-server replication, etc., rather than single server? John, the answer is yes and no. We're going to have something that will manage a cluster of servers. That's not going to be the studio itself. And shoot, that was one of the features that I wasn't supposed to talk about. So the answer is no comment. Okay, Kijana Woodard, forget the old browser, polyfill to fill out a few HTML features and done. I'm not sure that I'm following what he said, but I think he says, don't worry about HTML, non-compliant HTML5 browser. Okay.
Yeah.
Guys, last chance to ask questions. And Judah, do you have any last words?
I don't think so. Other than, yeah, I'd love to hear feedback either through the Raven Google group or my Twitter account, which is @JudahGabriel.
Okay, great. So guys, we will post the details about how you can get the code and how you can play and start contributing. Thank you very much, and see you next time.
Thanks, guys.